Caught by the Dragon by Tara Gill. Chapter 1. 100 lantern stones and no less, I said firmly. Father looked askance at me. Then he sighed, ran a hand through his gray, balding hair, and turned to our customer. You heard her? No less than 100 or you don't get what you want. The djinn wrung his hands, his red silk robes a stark contrast against his golden skin. Very well, 100, on the condition that they never be used above ground. He was worried others would come to know that he gave such precious treasure to one who was not his master. But the djinn needed something from me he couldn't get anywhere else, so he had no choice but to give us what I wanted. Do you have what I need now? He asked, tugging at his turban and glancing at the entrance of the cave that he kept his sights on at all times. Goblin Home was filled with such caves, and this was a pretty indeterminate one. I wondered what he was worried about. Anyway, we had what the djinn demanded, and soon he would be off on his way to satisfy his new mistress who he had been enamored with. Djinn were of the fire, and sometimes could not manipulate the other elements such as earth or stone. The djinn's new mistress asked him for a castle hewed out of a single large diamond, and since he wanted to please her, he reached out through his contacts to us. Yes, be ready to receive your gift. I cracked my neck and extended arms covered in loose sleeves. It was best clients didn't lay eyes on any identifying marks, hence why my clothing was designed to disguise every part of me. Directed by Father, the djinn mirrored me, placing his palms upon mine. Power of earth and stone, stolen from a gargoyle, flowed into him in a rush. It was strong, and I could feel it energizing him. When it was over, the djinn looked flushed and triumphant. Are you all right, Lena? You look a bit pale, asked Father, his face falling into worried lines. The experience was a bit draining. Recovery should be fast enough. I wiped the perspiration off my forehead with a shaking hand. To the djinn I said, It should work now, try it out, motioning to the stone walls around us. The djinn made his way to the sides of the cave and placed his hands on the stone. He frowned in concentration, and in a blink, the walls turned into a deep emerald. Dazzling green light reflected prismatic light in all directions. My jaw dropped. The cave was now paradise. Climbers with white flowers grew into one translucent outer wall. The pale gray smooth stone of the floor moved up at a gradual incline to meet the emerald wall. Nearby, a waterfall made its way to a small but deep pool where the water swirled before it entered another inner chamber. The pool, reflecting green light, contained red flowers with jeweled green centers that bobbed at its surface, their fragrance scenting the air. Beautiful, I breathed. The djinn was happy. My mistress will be most pleased. It was a pleasure doing business with you. He placed a bag in Father's hands. Thank you for your timely help. If I can assist you in any way in the future, for payment of course, please let me know. Bowing to us, he vanished in a puff of smoke. Not bad. A favor from a djinn, while rarely offered, was valuable. Well done, child, said Father. Are you sure that the gargoyle didn't realize that you left him with less of his essence? I made sure he was inebriated. Besides, the loss of his abilities won't be permanent. It'll only be for a year. We walked out into the day. It was sunny with an enjoyable breeze. Squinting, I gazed around with enjoyment. This place might have been abandoned, but it was entirely gorgeous. Lush greenery, pleasant weather, cozy coves, what not to like? Still, it's better to lie low for some time. As usual, I will keep an ear to the ground to ensure no one suspects us. When it's safe to do business again, I will pass on the word to the next client. Wise advice. While I'd never been identified or caught yet, it was smart to be careful. Being cautious and taking on only discreet, though well-paid jobs, was why we'd succeeded so well for so long. 10 years had gone by since I was in the business of stealing powers and selling them for the right price. Thus far, touch on wood, it went more or less smoothly with no major hiccups. Glancing around, he added, This seems like an excellent place for you to hide out. Not many come around here anymore. True enough. Very well, if you give me the bag of lantern stones, I will hand them over to Kayla before I go underground. I had promised my best friend some of the elvish-spelled illumination stones. Kayla liked the cool starlight they provided. Father's face fell. Those are for your friend? Underworld has enough magic that they don't need these stones. You can make a fortune selling these. Father could be such a mercenary at times. I imagine the djinn paid you handsomely enough to arrange a meeting with me. No one knew that we were related. As far as customers knew, my father was just a facilitator, someone who arranged for their demands to reach the elusive magic thief, and for the exchange of goods to complete the deal. Father sighed, pulling out his hair again. Yes, he did. I didn't know the amount of gold that exchanged hands, but a meeting with me did not come cheap. But that is not important. At least sell the stones to your friends at a steep discount. Do not tell me you're going to hand it over for free. He seemed a bit nauseous. Father's family were thieves for generations, and it went sorely against his grain to give anything away for free. I rolled my eyes. Knowing Father, he would badger me forever about this. He still mourned my habit of giving birthday gifts to people I cared about. Having friends was forbidden. Caring about others was forbidden. Keep your head low and focus on the job, was his oft-repeated injunction. It was a lonely life. Think of it like this. Now the Underworld King owes me a favor, however small, when I keep his consort happy. It may come in handy, say maybe when I want protection. I tried to assuage him. No one would dare approach the Underworld or its king, who was obsessed with my friend. All the magical creatures I knew feared him. Father knew that as well as I. He frowned. I suppose this is true. Still, I'm sure that your friend would help you even without the gift. That girls like you. Reckless, he said with a grimace. We are no such thing, I said in automatic response. Father was right, though. Kayla and I were little terrors, always running wild, and it was a wonder we came to adulthood alive. We were in so many scrapes and gave our parents enough scares that Father attributed all his white hairs to me. There was a musical ting noise, and Father lifted up his timepiece. Glancing at it, he said, Well, child, I have somewhere to be, but before I leave... He handed over the bag that Jen gave him, but with it, another box of faded velvet. Placing the large bag next to my feet, I opened the velvet box. In a satin bed laid a delicate necklace of blue stones and silver. It was my mother's. It was made from aquamarine. Aquamarine was my birthstone. He must have remembered that tomorrow was my birthday. The necklace was lovely. My throat tight, I glanced up at Father's familiar lined face and his faded blue eyes. While we were not close, he was there, a guiding, protective force in my life. As much as I wished my mother were still alive, my life was what it was because of him. My gaze took to his stooped shoulders, the increased whiteness in his hair. We were not the type of family to exchange sentimental gifts. What was going on? My expression must have revealed my surprise. Child, did you think I forgot it was your birthing day tomorrow? We may not have time to celebrate properly. Divinity knows where the rest of the family is. But I wouldn't let your 3 and 20 years pass without the traditional father's gift. Most of my extended family were in hiding for fear of the law or reprisals on the account of the family profession, and could only be pinned down only after a lot of effort. They were also paranoid about gathering into one place for fear of a crackdown. This led to events like marriages and birthdays not having a large crowd, but we made up for it by being there when we really needed each other. 3 is a significant number. Father looked a bit anxious for a second. Old enough to be mated, Lena. Ah, yes. I would be 23 tomorrow, officially an adult. But doing this job for the past decade, watching and dealing with all kinds of creatures, I had seen much of the nature of people. There were times that I felt older than my actual age. Other times, though, I felt young and inexperienced. For all I had seen other people love, mate, fail, fight, I had never experienced love for myself. Romantic love passed me utterly by. The Jim we met today was a perfect example. He wanted something to impress his lover, or the werewolf we helped last month. He wanted a witch's potion for immortality, so he and his lover could be together for eternity. Often, I wondered what it would be like to have a man love me so much. Not that my life was sad, far from it. Adventure, moments of friendship, the adrenaline of danger, the satisfaction of a difficult job achieved, these made up my experiences. I guess I just wondered about the path not traveled, like any girl. During my teen years, I met many boys my age, and a few showed interest, even though I was an auburn-haired stick. I flirted back, more because I was often starved for attention, when Father left me alone for weeks at a time, than because of any significant interest. Oftentimes, these were boys in unfortunate circumstances from the very underbelly of society. If they were kind, I tried to help them in my way in return. When I developed curves, older men started noticing me. Breaking hearts was not on my agenda, nor was being noticed. I grew bangs to cover my large blue eyes, which I was often told were striking, and dressed in loose skirts and ill-fitting shirts. But as hard as I tried, I never could find it within me the thinnest spark of true attraction for a male, or a female for that matter. Recently, my best friend became the consort of the Underworld King. Well, it was more like he laid eyes on her and set up a trap to kidnap and lock her up in his cave of lust. She seemed perfectly happy with the status quo, though. Since I was entirely familiar with Kayla's tricky, devious side, I knew she wouldn't stay in prison unless she wanted to. Xander didn't know he was biting off more than he could chew with my friend. I wasn't worried about her. But I did worry if something was the matter with me. Maybe I was one of those people with no romantic or sexual urges. Someone who would be alone for all their life. Sounded lonely. More than ever, I wish my mother were alive so I could get some guidance from her. Really, I needed a drink. I needed to let loose tonight. Perhaps I would go to Kayla. Surprisingly, they had the best parties there in the underworld. Thanks for the necklace, Father. It's beautiful. I hugged him. He smelled the same musty old clothes, tobacco, and the earth, the smell I associated with comfort from the time I was a little girl. He sounded a bit wavery. We didn't often hug or display our emotions. He had never been that kind of parent. You're welcome, child. Your grandmother would have wanted you to have it. Well, I must go now. Take care. He patted me on the head like I was a puppy. Raising a hand to the traveling stone threaded to a string at his neck, he muttered his destination and was gone. I sighed and reached for the matching traveling stone at my neck. The underworld, I whispered. The next second I stood in front of the underworld king's chamber. Fire burned on the sconces around me, reflected on the shiny white marble floor. Moaning could be heard through the doors, followed by begging in Kayla's voice. I wasn't stupid enough to think there was any torture going on. If I learned anything watching my friend and her man, the only kind of torture he was making her endure was the sensual kind. Xander was too protective to do anything else. I bet they didn't expect to be interrupted. No one here would dare interrupt the king when he was with his consort. An evil smile twisted my lips. "Surprise!" I yelled and banged on the door. "Open up!" The traveling stone returned me to Goblin Home. I swayed on my feet. Father was right. This was a great place to lie low, abandoned and forgotten. However, the place seemed to spin right now. Or maybe that was just because I was intoxicated. Eerie pitch-black night blinded me, and there hardly seemed to be sound or light. I scrambled in my bag and managed to find a white candle that I held before me to guide my way. Kayla and I celebrated my birthday with some of her new friends in the palace. Her husband, yes, they were married now, and I wasn't surprised at all. In fact, I was surprised Xander waited so long. Left us to it. He appeared at midnight, though, and carried her off without a word to any of us. Kayla waved at me with a gleam in her eye and winked while yelling happy birthday. We all cheered, drunkenly happy for her. "Oh, here you are." The emerald cave loomed in front of me, gleaming faintly in the candlelight. There were several spots across the plain that would serve as an adequate hiding spot, but somehow the emerald cave called to me. I arranged the fur-lined sleeping bag against the cave's emerald wall, after checking to make sure there were no creepy crawlies. Pulling off all clothes except for my chemise and short pants, I made myself ready for the land of Nod. A quarter of an hour later, I was still awake. It was so quiet. Never having spent a night in this place before, I didn't know if this was the norm here, but it was certainly unusual. No wind sounds or animal sounds. I tried to remember what I knew about this place. Goblinheim was full of deep, winding caves hewed by goblins of old, but they all fled when the dragon attacked them and took their treasure for its own. Now the caves laid empty, and the plain was abandoned. Goblins settled on other lands, and even centuries later, they refused to return. It was said that among them the dragon still laid here, though no hide nor hair had seen of the beast in all these years. The djinn we transacted with today suggested we meet here, away from prying eyes. When Father expressed concern about the dragon, the djinn shuddered and said that as long as we took care not to wake the sleeping beast, then it should be fine. I wondered what he meant. It almost sounded as if the djinn thought the dragon laid asleep here. I snickered. That would have been one hell of a long nap, one that lasted centuries. It wasn't as if the dragon could remain unnoticed even if it was laying somewhere dozing away. Dragons weren't tiny, and if a giant centuries-old dragon laid here, then people would have noticed. There were even some thieves, not me, but the reckless ones, who would try to hunt a dragon for a dragon heart, an elusive gem that resided in the heart of every dragon. It was supposed to give mysterious magical properties that included healing and immortality. There were wealthy clients who would pay a resourceful thief a fortune for a gem like that. I turned over, adjusting myself against the hard stone floor, and my necklace clinked. My thoughts turned to the party this evening. It was fun. Lots of potent wine, delicious food, music, and dancing. A great way to bring in a birthday. Kayla loved my necklace. She also sensed I was a bit mopey, and she dragged the reason out of me. Some of my hazy concerns were now allayed after our conversation. The connection I feel with Xander is something unmatched. I don't think I could ever have had this with anyone else. The mate bonding is intense. You become interconnected at so many levels. Your thoughts, your emotions, your very life force. Life will become bearable away from your mate. His touch assuages needs that I can't even articulate. It takes a lot of strength for a woman to be able to have such a connection with a male and still remain true to herself, Lena. You're still growing in your strengths. It's hard for me at times not to completely give in to Xander on all issues. I want to make him so happy, you see. But Xander understands. He makes it easy for me. I give him a lot, but when it matters to me, he encourages me to stand up for myself, which only makes me love him more. You'll be an adult tomorrow. I found my mate in my 23rd year. Maybe you will too. Let's hope for the best. Kayla hugged me and then handed over a giant glass of my favorite purple wine. I sighed. Over the years, I stole so many strange powers and let them reside in my body before passing it on. Ones that manipulated the very air, created illusions of the mind nightmares, made gold from inanimate objects, extended lifetimes of creatures, found soulmates for other creatures, helped infertile couples become parents, and even helped hex a deserving few. None of those powers felt right in my body. I was glad to pass it on to the clients who paid so much for it. Often, I envied those who enjoyed and nurtured their abilities. I wanted an ability of my own, not just to be a thief, but to be an original. But for my birthday, I didn't want any magical ability. All I wanted was not to be alone anymore. I was young, but I felt lonely. Hidden away in disguises, I escaped a lot of attention. Still, I ached to be seen, to be known. For my next birthday, I didn't want to be unaccompanied like I was tonight, hidden and far from everyone I cared about. For all his years, I saw Father alone, always on the edge of society, never forming any true connections to anyone, never truly living. I didn't want that for me. I decided that starting tomorrow, I would find a way to seek companionship, to find a new mate. Yes, it would require change and involve taking risks, perhaps, but so did my current path. Didn't they say anything worthwhile took effort? Tomorrow I'd figure out a plan. With a smile on my lips, I fell asleep. Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and would like to hear more, please click the like and subscribe button. Links to buy the book are down in the description, as are the links to my Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon. My audio reading book promotions are free for any published writers, so if you have a book you want me to read the first chapter from, just shoot me an email with your first chapter, book cover, links to purchase your book, and a brief description to ebonyclock@yahoo.com. See you next time on Ebony Clock Promotions.